Welcome to X-Men Evolution, episode 28 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men animated recap podcast. I'm Rod, and did you know that we were recording our last podcast episode and an earthquake happened? I just saw an update of 4.5 hitting San Bernardino while we were sitting here recording.
Real time, like an hour ago, and it's posting time a week ago?
Yeah, 7:44 p.m. Yeah, like an hour and a half ago or so. So like maybe right when we started recording. Actually, exactly right when we started, because we were going to go 8, and then we started like a little bit before. Fun. Good omen.
No, I didn't know that, Ron.
I didn't know that either. I went over to message you the link to this recording, and then I just saw a friend like, geez, another earthquake. And then someone replied like, oh yeah, 4.5, 1 mile west of San Bernardino.
No, but we talked about this. I'm very fortunate to be in a newly built construction. And when the hurricane hit, I literally didn't feel it. The only reason I knew there was a earthquake during the hurricane was because you posted about it. Yeah, you were the first post that went live 17 seconds later on Instagram.
And I'm the full opposite end of that. I live in such a shitty place. And it's so shoddy that you can't feel anything here either. Everything's moving all the time.
And I'm JC, and because the only way I hold myself accountable in the real world is to say stuff on this podcast, the week following the Super Bowl, I will start streaming weekly on Sunday nights again.
Oh, nice. What are you doing on there?
I don't fucking know yet. I had to say it somewhere to hold myself to actually do it.
Right.
Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series. We're going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode that we can find, along with some bonus content like video games, Lego builds, and other shit we haven't come up with yet. Our first series started with the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series, building up to the release of X-Men 97, which we thought was going to be coming to Disney Plus last year. As of the day of this recording, we still do not have a release date, but it should be coming out this year. But until that happens, we're going to be covering other X-Men animated series like this one, X-Men Evolution.
Some quick reminders: we're a recap show about a series that started over 20 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. We are currently not sponsored by or affiliated with Marvel Animation, Disney, or Disney Plus in any way. We threw Hulu in the bucket because who knows what's happening to that. It looks like they're gradually merging into one service.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikToks, Threads, even though I forget to post there, Twitter, which is really only useful for finding out about earthquakes, and Facebook. And of course, make sure you follow us on all of your favorite podcast services. Follow us on multiple podcast services. If you have multiple apps, follow us on all of them.
And if you were on Google, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Because Google Podcasts is no more.
Yeah, we did, in between previous episodes and this one, set up the RSS feed. So we are on a YouTube podcast, which I think you just have to subscribe to the YouTube channel to get it in your feed. But yeah, it's the audio-only solution for podcasts on there.
And now on to the show. Today we're going to be talking about...
Sorry, just got to point out, such a quicker introduction compared to last week. I think we went 22 minutes before we started talking about the episode.
Yeah.
This is what happens when we record 2 episodes in one night.
Yeah. The first one, we unload on everything that's happened in the last 2 weeks. And this one, the only news update was there was an earthquake. So we technically did do what we normally do.
But because we record in batches, that news was a week late.
Now onto the show. Today we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 15, titled The HeX Factor. I don't know how to emphasize sonically the capitalized X. It aired February 20th, 2002, and currently sits at a 7.6 star rating on IMDb. This rated higher than Walk on the Wild Side as well?
I double-checked.
Yeah, that's so funny. Not that it was a bad episode. I liked it. Also, full disclosure, I fully expected there to be another music video in this one. It had everything set up for there to be another music video.
Including, before we get into the details of the episode, Wanda, who is in this psychiatric institute, has full eye makeup on in her little straitjacket.
And she does the whole hair cutting montage. Actually, I genuinely thought as soon as she took the first snip of her hair, it was going to be like, don't, it was going to go back into something like that.
It's just the bad girl theme song for the X-Men.
Right. It opens up on what it, to me initially looked like a cathedral or a church maybe.
Same. I literally wrote it as creepy cathedral.
Yeah. And then we go inside. I'm like, oh, this is a prison. But this is more of like a psychiatric facility, right? Is that what
yeah, but here's the thing. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any experience with psychiatry or mental health or any of that shit. Why would you take people who are having mental health issues and put them into some of the scariest looking buildings possible?
Oh, yeah. It's like Arkham, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a creepy fucking castle. Like, how is that good for anybody's mental health? I feel like you're degrading the health of the healthy people working there.
What makes sense about it is
Nope.
that it's in America.
Oh,
So-
we don't know how to deal with mental health here.
Just medical facilities in general. Back now, several years ago, a mutual acquaintance, a friend of ours, had a stroke, and so me and my at that time like business partner would go visit this friend in their assisted living while they were recovering from the stroke, like every other day, and they put them in the most depressing facility ever. It was just like constant moaning. People were literally being wheeled out by the mortician daily and stuff. And
That's great for people to see.
yeah, exactly. You look around, you're like, this is where you're supposed to recover. I'm like, recover is not the word I would use here. This looks like where you get sent to die. They're not intending for you to leave here. Anyway, so this is believable. We're like, yeah, we're not really thinking she's going to get better. We're just going to put her in a scary building.
And we also know that Xavier has some involvement with this person who's locked up here. So he's locked this person up in this facility, or been at least aware of them being in the facility. And he's locked up his brother in that government facility as well.
How many prisoners does Xavier have?
Well, we know of two so
yeah.
far. And I'm very cautious about saying so far.
Yeah. This kind of goes into the next thing. You mentioned what order these were in. Was this in the before everything gets revealed or after people start finding out about mutants? This was before, right?
No, I believe this is the
was
one
after?
that brings it back into order.
Okay.
Let me just confirm, since I closed that tab for...
I was just wondering because...
Yes, this is the one that brought them back into order. So this
Okay.
is the last episode before the two-part season finale.
Because, well, let's get back into it. Xavier's being escorted into a separate room, which in a normal facility would be where you would have like visitations for prisoners or whatever, but this is like a castle turret dungeon or something.
Yeah, it's a dungeon.
And then all the orderlies basically radio each other that Xavier's there, the prisoner's ready, make sure her hands are bound, they can't move even just a little bit. And then you see that it's Wanda. And to be honest, except I wouldn't have known that right away, except that you would message me, do you want the episode with Eve or Wanda? And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, this is Wanda because they're playing her as young. She's not like one of the elder mutants in the show.
Right. Which makes sense considering we know how old her brother is.
Pietro, yeah. And Wanda's in a straitjacket. They have these...
The poles.
The poles. I guess that's a real world thing?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that. My only... This is so dumb. My only reference to that before was in Mortal Kombat 11, the Collector. That's how they would handle him because he had several arms. And so I saw in this episode, I was like, oh, is this something not Mortal Kombat?
So I've not ever seen it used on a person to the best of my memories of a movie, but I've definitely seen it used on animals, which has really worse implications.
Yeah. Also, anytime in this show, whether it's like Juggernaut or Wanda, or in any movie or TV show, when you have somebody that's in prison somewhere and any of this, you let them out a little bit, they're going to get out. There's something the facility's not thinking of. Of course, she like wiggles like a finger or two out and then like...
Yeah,
melts
it
the
looked like
straps.
she had gotten her fingers out the edge of the straitjacket, essentially, and she was able to melt the latch on the straps.
Yeah, so she gets out and just wreaks havoc. And that was a point where I was like, okay, even if the world doesn't know about mutants, there's 100 orderlies that do, right? At the very least.
Right. Yeah, because they all know if she moves her hands, she's doing magic. Even if you don't identify that as a mutant power, you know that this girl has powers. All these orderlies who are definitely not being paid enough for the shit they're dealing with in this facility, and all of the guards at the Juggernaut's facility know there's people with powers. Whether mutant or not, you know there's powers at least.
And I think Wanda, this situation was so much more wild because at least with Juggernaut, it was like just a couple, because we joked about how there's like virtually no one there most of the time and stuff. And you could almost chalk up to like just being like some sort of like freak of nature, like superhuman strength or whatever.
Like a
But,
brute, basically.
Yeah. He's really big. But this is essentially a teenage girl. And not only is she wreaking havoc and like the walls are cracking, earthquake stuff, there's psychedelic stuff happening, like things are melting and physics just aren't being followed and stuff. It makes a little bit more sense if some of the world already knows we're in the order of the season where stuff is starting to leak out. Then,
But because the internet isn't as prominent and there's not a Twitter, and Facebook is still just kids in college at that point.
Was 2002 still was Facebook already starting then?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I want to say it was 2002 or 2003.
Okay.
Because I think I've mentioned this in the past. My school was in the first 20 schools to get Facebook because we were in New England.
Okay, that makes sense. Because like I didn't have any inkling of Facebook when I was in college.
Yeah.
And then maybe a year or two when after I graduated, I remember exactly where I was sitting with a friend, and my tech friend was like, "Rod,
oh, geez, that was 2004. I'm way off. This was still this was MySpace days."
Okay, gotcha. Or maybe it was like Zuckerberg's doing the first coding for the first version that was problematic.
Yeah.
Or I guess it went full circle and became problematic. Yeah. So she goes ham on the whole facility.
Yep.
Melts the front door. Actually, the melting of the door made sense because at least it was like molten or whatever. There's some stuff that she does it's just wavy, like the particles get crazy and stuff. And then she just leaves. She somehow arrives in the room with Xavier. At first, I thought like that's just a happenstance, and she doesn't know this facility very well. They have a reveal here in a little bit, but she arrives there. They do the before credits cliffhanger where she reaches out, and you're like, oh, she is gonna, because what she's been doing to everybody else, she's just gonna like eviscerate Xavier. Then it cuts to the opening credits.
This was the PG version of Wanda versus the Illuminati, basically, because she murdered all those guys who were the orderlies there. They did not all survive this.
That was what I was going to say. Okay, so when they come back from the credits, there's a very quick like recoil where Xavier calms her down, and he's like, "I thought we learned to control our anger and stuff." And then I'm like, okay, so they've been having regular meetings. He's her psychiatrist. Do 50 people die every time he comes to visit this place to help her? Because she clearly killed people back there.
That was my question. Why did he not just be there to walk her out of her cell to the room?
Yeah, I guess.
Because he's the one person who could like keep her under control. And some of the guards seem to get that.
Yeah, because 2 guards came in after that, and they were like, "Oh, we gotta get her." And he's like, Xavier's like, "Oh, she's good now," because he.
And they just accept it, and there was no impression that he did any mind tricks.
Yeah, so I don't know. It was wild. So you get the
Xavier let those people die is the translation.
And we don't know how many visitations this is, but it seems like a lot. If he thinks that they got past a milestone getting over anger issues.
Yeah.
Because going to therapy, if you've ever been, for a normal, non-powered, magical human is a considerable amount of time to hit a milestone like that.
Right.
So I can only imagine if you could do that and also warp reality. Probably takes a little longer. Quite a few people have died.
Yeah. Wanda just points out that she wants out. She doesn't really give a shit about anything else. And then he's like, I can't take the risk at my institute. And I'm like, damn, this version of Chuck is cold.
Right.
So we've talked in recent episodes about the X-Men group on Facebook. And this is one of those times where I don't want to come off as comic snob by any means, but there are a few people who have been posting, oh, I don't like XYZ that they've done with Xavier, and they talk about different things. And a few of us who have read the comics are like, guys, all due respect, shy of 1992 and some of the stuff in the Fox live action movies, Charles is a dick. Like, Charles is traditionally not the greatest of guys. Like, he takes liberties like this, and I just can't bring you into my facility that has, a teacher that tried to eat one of our students, the guy who I just found out fought the Nazis.
And also, she's a teenager with reality warping powers. That's insane.
Of anybody who needs to actually be trained the most, it's her.
Could you, because I don't think we ever get clued in to us if Xavier knows that she's Magneto's daughter. They don't think they talk about it with Xavier. She does with Pietro. And we obviously know. But how wild would that have been? Like, because
you're right.
I don't think he addresses it because that's another one of those, oh, your enemy is your daughter's therapist. So many things happening right there.
You're right. It is not addressed.
Of course she doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, that's not what she wants to hear.
Yeah. They don't even get 2 sentences out, and then the doctor comes in and he's like, excuse me, we have to cut this short today because we have to do some more MRIs and radiology. 2 things. Cut short is like an understatement because
it was literally a 14-second interaction.
Yeah. More time passed when all those orderlies and guards were killed. B, why don't they use that long-range MRI they used in the previous episode?
Because this is not a SHIELD facility, Rod. If this was a SHIELD facility, she wouldn't be getting visitation. Nick Fury doesn't fuck around. I also love MRI is mentioned in 2 episodes in rapid succession. I don't think we've heard MRI the entire first series or up until this point.
Yeah, and used in vastly different forms. Like, one of them is essentially like a telescope that can X-ray, and this one sounds like a more traditional one because they have to take her away.
And one time it's being used as a metal detector.
Right.
Also, we didn't talk about it last episode. I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to have metal in your pockets during an MRI.
Oh, yeah, because it's magnetic. Is that the M in MRI, I'm assuming?
Sure. We are not engineers. We are not scientists. We are definitely not doctors.
Yeah. Xavier accepts it very quickly. Maybe he just wants to get the hell out of there because
he's a shitty professor.
Right. And then the doctor walks Wanda out. I don't know what it was about this. Maybe I'm just getting used to the way they portray body language in this. My next note was like, this is clearly Mystique. And I don't have any hints or anything. It's just that like random doctor walks in and is like walking down the hallway with Wanda, and it keeps mounting. The evidence keeps mounting because he holds up his badge and they're like,
right.
we just got to go do some x-rays. And then they go into the hallway, and then this was the final hint, was they walk right past the radiology room.
Yeah.
And Wanda even looks over. This is so awkward that even Wanda, who just had a rage fit of murdering everybody, was like, wait, Will's back there.
Also, the YouTube algorithm is going to love how many times we've said killed and murdered in this episode. No, it's one of those things where there's something about this version of Charles, and I don't know if it's maybe this version is more of a dick or he's not as experienced as other versions of Charles. But yeah, if you're in there for a session after she nearly killed, quote unquote, a bunch of people, I would actually make the argument that you shouldn't be worried about the MRIs right now, and you should worry about your session more. But yeah. He's so like, I just gave her this bad news that she can't come to the Institute again. She probably is going to try to kill me. I don't want to deal with her. Mm-hmm. And his solution is, yeah, go have MRIs.
Right. I also didn't think about this until just now. No one's addressed like the structural integrity of that building. She like cracked walls and stuff, and that was only that day.
And also, they don't put her back into a straitjacket when she now is like just coming off of a rage high.
That's so funny.
Not for the people that have been murdered, Rob.
Right. They pass radiology and they go into a stairwell, clearly escaping. And
she gets a little freaked out by the stairwell, though.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah, at first she like gets a little nervous, and Mystique like eggs her on to keep going. So,
and they keep walking out, but as they get outed, for lack of better words, because she's in places she's not supposed to be. She's destroying everything on the way out in a myriad of ways. You're going to laugh at me for this next thing. I eventually figure it. Well, I don't figure it out. They tell me. They go outside, and I just say, outside there's an old lady in a robe, and she puts a spell on her, and she falls asleep. That's all I had. And then Mystique looks like she walks back inside, but I guess she doesn't go inside. She just goes elsewhere.
I got the impression she went back in to go fuck shit up.
Okay. So it wasn't just me. I thought she went back inside too.
You're forgiven only because, not being a comic reader, you are not used to the old lady version of Agatha.
And I don't even really have that excuse.
I tried to give you an outline.
Yeah, I know. Because even when Catherine Hahn got introduced as Agatha, I remember there being a big deal. She's not some old lady. The MCU has this, even not just the MCU proper, but like all the Marvel Extended Universe stuff, with this Madame Web movie coming out and stuff.
Madam. Not Madame.
Okay. Madame Web stuff coming out. They're just taking all the old ladies and making them young. Aunt May.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and Agatha here is strangely consistent. Let's just put it that way. But I remember seeing images of Agatha then. I should have put it together because it's Wanda, but I didn't.
Right.
Then we're back at the high school, not the institute. Okay, this is gonna be part 2 of my what's up with that milk carton thing. Kurt can't get into his locker.
And he had a key.
Did you have a key for your locker? I've never had a key for a school locker.
No, I didn't, because we were only allowed to use locks with a combination. You were not allowed to have a lock with a key as the only solution for it. We actually had to buy our locks so the school could get into them at any time.
Schools that I went to, either you bought a lock, or I can't remember if we leased them or not. I can't remember. Or our parents paid for it, whatever it was. But they were all that one master lock, that silver one that everybody knows. Or they were just built into the locker. I remember, was it middle school that they were built in the lockers for me? That was an issue because, like, if you had that locker last year or semester, then
nobody would ever reset the codes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. At the time, I thought that you just couldn't. But now that I'm thinking back on it, the school system, they probably just didn't.
They didn't give a shit, dude.
But I don't know of any American school, at least, a public school that would use keys for locks for the locker. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this will be the clip for this week, and everybody will tell me I'm wrong.
It has to be, because somebody yelled at us for not judging them for making up their own milk carton
thing. So I saw a comment about, oh, you must not come from a big family because we got milk like that all the time. And I was like, really? Where though? Like where?
I've literally never seen that as a actual IRL design. No,
yeah, me neither.
It had a handle on it, and I just missed it completely when it was on the screen. But when you pulled it for the reel and the clip, I was like, what the fuck?
What is that? I thought maybe, because you know how is it Canada that has the bags of milk and you put them into the pitcher?
Yes.
Like maybe it's something like where there's like a carton that doesn't have a handle on it, and so that you can get a handle for whatever. But I don't think that is common, at least out here. Same thing. When you went to high school or junior high, do you or anybody you know have like a key for your school locker? I just think that's weird.
Yeah, maybe, if you have, tell us, but it does not match up with either of our experiences.
Maybe for sports, like in the locker room or something, I could maybe see it because it's a little more lax and you bring your own lock or whatever. But this one didn't even look like it was a separate lock. It looked like it was part of the.
It was built into door. It. Yeah.
So anyway,
wow, we are hung up on the dumbest shit on this show. I love it.
Kurt can't get into the locker. Kitty walks over and she's like, "You just got to know how to do it." And so she like phases into the locker, gets his history book or whatever
history book
going to.
Yep.
And Kurt's like, "Oh man, I owe you one." She's like, "Really?" And then she just materializes a pan of muffins.
And I love that the little like B story of this episode is how bad Kitty is at making muffins, because Kurt takes a bite and he won't swallow, whatever the scenario is, and he teleports away, and this time the muffin hits the ground and it literally bounces back up like a Looney Tunes episode.
And this was something I don't know if anybody else noticed too, but when Kitty says she wants him to try a muffin she made in home ec, when she holds the muffin up, and if you didn't notice this, you can go back and watch and listen, they play like a horror music cue. It goes, yeah, like as she holds it up. They went there. I don't know how it was for those productions. Usually I do some production music, as I mentioned a few episodes ago. That feels like either the music guy had a sense of humor and did that, or more likely the director of that episode had it as a direct note.
Right.
Music swell when Kitty holds up the muffin or something. I just thought it was a funny little like joke, like, no one's going to get that, but that's so fun.
But you, as the music guy, got it.
Yeah, right. Anyway, he's kind of rude to her, like, because she says, what's it missing? And he's like, something to wash away the taste. I was like, oh, damn. She just helped you get your book. You could at least be like,
sugar. It's missing sugar.
Yeah, then he teleports away. Outside of the school, Scott and Jean are talking. They're finally having the talk.
They're having a talk at this point.
Scott's like, so what about Duncan? And Jean's like, yeah, he's not the guy that I thought he was, which is not the answer that someone you're interested in is supposed to have.
But if you take it in the context of the episode order, regardless of the time in between or the reorders and stuff, this still happens after. We could see between the Sadie Hawkins dance ticket scenario, the dance itself, where he is just like talking to his buddies and ignoring her, that she's definitely feeling underappreciated in the relationship. It makes a lot of sense that she's feeling that way.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's just something like...
I know you get it. I'm just fucking... I'm mansplaining to the audience, Rod.
I'm just saying, when you're in that kind of situation where you're interested in somebody, but they're already in something, you... hopefully, you want them to be in a good situation so that you feel like you're doing the right thing, right? You're staying in your own lane because they're in a relationship. But now when they're like, he's an asshole. Wait, no, what do I do now, though? Now we're in this gray area.
And also it jumps to... how's stuff with Taryn? And he's like, she's real nice. And it's like, I can't be the asshole who finds out you're going to break up with Duncan, and then I'm going to dump Taryn and immediately start dating you.
Yeah.
Like, you still look like a douchebag when that happens.
Yeah. And speaking of all that, Scott's like, so I've been wanting to talk to you. And he finally starts initiating some sort of conversation. We don't ever get a clear picture of, like, is he going to say that him and Taryn broke up? Or he's gonna... Or that he's going to actually tell her his feelings or
and
whatever.
Then figure out if they should break up so they could... The latter of those is what I thought was going to happen. And then Duncan just starts laying on his horn.
Okay, so Duncan's got more of a personality now. He was just kind of aloof. And then, so the ticket thing happened, and that was like a little bit presumptuous. Now he's just a straight up asshole. He's like, honk, honk, bitch, get in the car. Even if he was like a decent person, but just not taking social cues in a relationship, I don't think you wouldn't honk every 2 seconds for your partner to get in the car. You know what I mean?
He's kind of dumb, Rod.
He keeps interrupting Scott. They never get the chance. Jean's like, we have to talk about this later.
And then she screams, "I'm coming!" I really did love this interaction with them.
I was hoping to see the conversation, though, at least a little bit.
The thing is, we still have to address that there is the third part of this love triangle, removing Duncan and Taryn, because Rogue is into Scott still.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then we go to the Brotherhood house, and the long-awaited moment happens where Mystique returns to the house. And
because we have not seen her since the end of the arcade episode at the house party.
Yeah, and these guys haven't seen her since the season 1 finale.
Yep.
Her first action is to yeet Toad, which I thought was hilarious.
It was great. Toad is just the punching bag of this this whole sequence.
Then her dialogue also clarifies something that you suspected before, that the house was nice.
Yeah.
And they fucked it up. And that's why her room stayed nice, because it was off limits.
Until Boom Boom took it over,
Yeah. And so she was like, "What did you do to my house?" And then she said, this is less of a Brotherhood house and more, this is probably like something Mystique just owned and then invited all these team members into. And then she makes a good point. These guys are losers because since she left, they have not had a single victory over the X-Men.
I was honestly waiting for one of them to make a dumb comment of, "We beat the X-Men and got to go to Asteroid M and you didn't." I was literally waiting for that to happen. Yeah. Sadly, it did not. And
then she also points out to Lance that she knows that one of you tried to join them. She doesn't quite say that she was Risty the whole time. Just more, maybe she's holding that card in her back pocket just so that she seems more ominous to these boys.
And at the very least, because later she talks about stealing files, it could be interpreted by the boys that she just stole that. It was in the files that she had gotten.
And then Boom Boom starts walking down the stairs. I know this is a long shot, but if someone wanted to make a She's All That reference, this could be it, I guess, because she's walking downstairs and everybody's looking at her.
Ironically, there was a post today where somebody must have had an autocorrect issue, and they said, "What's the difference between Morph and Mystic?"
Okay.
And I started laughing because having watched the episode yesterday in preparation for the recording, Boom Boom is like, "Oh yeah, so this is Mystic you're talking about." And Mystique responds back by calling her Bam Bam, which I thought was great.
Which hopefully, I think everybody that listens to this is about our age or within a decade or so you know who Bam Bam is.
Not according to Spotify analytics. We have a group that is between 13 and 17 who should not be listening to our trash, but they are.
Okay, so if you're 13 to 17, do you know who Bam Bam is? I feel like everybody knows who the Flintstones are, but I could be wrong.
Because of the John Goodman movie, which probably still came out right around the time they were children, so yeah.
I know it was probably a bad movie, but I have real nostalgia for those two movies.
I think the first one was actually pretty decent, and it was the second one that fell apart because John Goodman didn't come back for the sequel.
I like that era of the 90s, sheen over those movies that is a camp.
Yeah.
That is just fun, not taking steps too seriously. But I was actually wondering if there was more people that knew it from do you still have Flintstones vitamins? I feel like the vitamins...
That's probably the most active thing in pop culture for the Flintstones to this day. That and Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles.
Fruity Pebbles, I forgot about that.
Is that still a thing? I feel like it is. Yeah. I don't go to supermarkets anymore, so.
I don't buy cereal because I generally don't eat it, but I know that they still call stuff Fruity Pebbles because edibles I get, you get a choice between regular Rice Krispies or Fruity Pebbles. At least I feel like it's still out there.
And if you're listening and you're at a store that sells Fruity Pebble edibles, Rod will take sponsorships.
Except I can't because it has food coloring in it.
Oh.
So I always get the regular ones, but I see or unless you have, for some reason, plant-based colors. And I'm not saying that as like a LA, hipster or whatever. I Red 40 specifically, I have an intolerance to.
It kills him.
Yeah, right. But I did sacrifice 2 days of health this past weekend because I really wanted to try Takis. Totally worth it.
I was going to say, was it worth it?
Oh, they're so delicious.
Good.
But there is so much food coloring in those. Have you ever eaten Takis or seen Takis?
Not sober.
Man, the blue heat ones specific, all of them have a lot of food coloring in them.
Yeah.
The blue heat ones, and I think it's part of the texture too, because I enjoy the texture. It's like powdery, but it's caked. You can scrape off layers and layers of the color. It's like powder paint for cars and shit.
Right.
I think the whole point of it is that when you your tongue is coated in blue and everything. Anyway, a few mutual friends of ours informed me that there's a Trader Joe's brand of Takis that don't have artificial food coloring in it. And if that's the case, I know what my weekend is going to be like. Anyway.
That was the tangent of the fucking year.
Right. Bam Bam to the Takis. And then Boom Boom makes one of her little explosive ball thingies. And the guys are like, can't do that. And so they just toss it around like a hot potato. It ends up with Toad. he gets blown up again. So this is at least 3 times he's been blown up by Boom Boom's explosive things that we know of.
Yeah, because Boom Boom is about to do it, and then Quicksilver makes the save. Because I think he's the one who is most genuinely terrified of Mystique of the whole group. Maybe because he's the smartest.
He also double agented her too. He's probably like a little, and they haven't had time to hash that out since he betrayed her a little bit. But yeah, and then Toad walks back into frame, cartoon logic. You know,
blown out hair.
His hair's blown up, but he's pretty much unscathed.
No.
Even though we've seen those explosive balls blow up lamps and public furniture and stuff.
Cars.
Yeah, cars.
He pops back into frame as Quicksilver is asking her where she's been. And she introduces their new secret weapon, which is Wanda. And instantly, obviously, Pietro recognizes his sister, and she is instantly pissed off at him.
I love that interaction. 2 things. Because these characters are so different from the ones I'm used to, forgot that they would know each other. It was so quick. He's like, Pietro? Yeah. He's like, Wanda? Pietro? And then she just goes ham on the building.
Yeah.
We don't know why yet, except that they're teenagers and siblings.
And then you get the really awkward moment, which I guess if you've never read or watched the X-Men before, you wouldn't know this part of it. But they're hiding Quicksilver and Toad behind a couch. He's like, oh, is that your ex-girlfriend? It's just cringy the second you hear it. No, it's worse. It's my sister. But it's just the implication of Pietro and his sister being what it is in the comic book sphere is just awkward.
And did I hear a rumor, too, that Elizabeth Olsen, and I can't remember his name, that played Quicksilver in the MCU, they hinted at it, too, in their acting?
I have never noticed it.
Read that somewhere. I honestly can't remember if it was like a rumor thing that happened on the internet at the time, or there was an interview where they were like, we didn't know we were going with it yet, so we kept toying with the idea.
That one has always been to make people uncomfortable. It's not for good reasons.
I didn't notice that though, so you pointed out, when he was asked if it was his girlfriend or sister. That's wild. Anyway, so they're behind the couch. They're all trying to like avoid her. Toad, I guess since he realizes he's impervious, actually goes to attack her and he tries sliming her, but she like deflects it back to him.
She reverses it back at him.
And he's grossed out, which says a lot because he's had a toilet blow up and all this stuff. And he says, ooh, I slimed myself.
Yeah.
And then you'll laugh at this, my note here. The old lady comes back and calms her down again.
Right before that, Lance is yelling at Quicksilver to get her to stop. Quicksilver's like, I can't do shit. Lance then has his powers reversed against him. So they're just destroying this fucking house. Yes, and then quote unquote old lady returns.
But then Mystique name drops her. And that's my next note. Oh my God, it's Agatha Harkness. Of course. I should have recognized it. Because specifically the robe, I feel like was very identifiable from like the comic things I've seen. It's so funny just because I'm not familiar with the comic history of things. I saw so many parallels from the WandaVision show that I'm aware of with Wanda and Agatha, is that Agatha is this mentor, but also a little bit of an enemy.
In the comics, Agatha primarily is a good witch and helped Wanda gain more control of her powers, and was like a mentor scenario, but didn't go the like evil route that we saw in WandaVision.
And I guess technically in WandaVision, Agatha is still also much older than Wanda. She just physically doesn't age as much because she was alive during the Salem Witch Trials.
Right. And in the comics, that's accurate too, that she was around during the Salem Witch Trials.
And that's when Mystique, this show, especially in the second half of the second season, is doing a great job of callback. So either this was planned out or they did a great job of pulling from stuff that happened earlier. Mystique reveals here that, like you mentioned, when she stole the CD from Cerebro, part of the information she got was Wanda's psych profile, and she knows exactly how to control her, which is kind of gross, but also that's Mystique's thing.
100% think this was planned out. I think they were given a little more freedom for those overarching connectivity of the episodes, that they planned this out. I, not knowing what was coming, thought it was going to be a little more of like Hellion style story where Mystique was going to give up on the Brotherhood and try to like grab some of Xavier's students and go after the new X-Men or the new mutants, whatever you want to call them. But her just being like, who's the most powerful one I could fucking target, and picking Wanda. And
speaking of grabbing the X-Men, something I forgot to mention earlier is when Mystique first arrived at the house, one of the first things she did was tell Boom Boom to get out of her room. So clearly she's aware of that. So at this point now, Boom Boom vacated the room and she's leaving. And as she's leaving the house, you see Mystique's room blow up. and I guess she had to get the last word in. I don't know how that house is still standing. There can't be any structural integrity left. In the
It has to be one of the strongest foundations, considering Blob's room is on the second floor.
Right.
Blob has tried breaking into Mystique's door at some point.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So that has it's got to be one of those really old houses because the structural integrity is amazing.
Yeah. And then we go back to the X Mansion. Scott is going through the fridge in the kitchen, and Kurt scares him because Kurt is trying to hide.
Yeah, he gives a good jump scare.
He's trying to hide from Kitty, and we find out that Kurt has had to try more muffins throughout the day.
Yeah.
And he can't take any more. He says it's still not out of his system yet.
And I think they indicate this is like her 5th batch or something like that.
Which, to be fair, that's a lot of muffins even for regular ones.
Yeah, Scott says that Kitty is looking for her official taste tester.
Man, that is rough. I guess it makes sense if you're a Kitty, you want the same person to...
Yeah, because you have to know if you got better or worse.
But... And then this was like the sitcom tropes. Right before Kurt takes a bite... So Kitty does come in and find him. Right before Kurt takes a bite of the muffin, Xavier interrupts him. He's like, everybody to the library for a meeting. So Kurt's like, oh, guess I can't try it. And then he teleports away. But when the muffin hits the floor, it breaks the tiles.
Yeah.
On the kitchen floor. Kitty laughs. That would have broke him, literally.
We just destroy our own home.
Then we go to the library. Xavier is revealing to the kids, like, Wanda's whole thing. That she was tortured. She was like kind of a tortured mind, and mostly from the trauma of her father abandoning her.
Right.
When we actually see the flashback, it's not like in the 92 series of the comics where it's like they're infants and it's Magda.
Yeah, they're probably 6 to 8 years old because I have no other age group of kids that I can identify.
Old enough to remember the people, the settings, the time.
Yeah.
And Xavier said that he doesn't think that she just got out. He sensed that she broke out.
And that there was help. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that someone broke her out. Then back at the Brotherhood, what is supposed to be, or is Agatha mentoring Wanda? My note here was Agatha is just basically traumatizing Wanda. There's this montage of Agatha traumatizing Wanda. Really, she's getting her to face her traumas.
It's immersion therapy, right?
You can take this trauma and this pain and this anger and make literal magic, but not in like Lisa Frank way, like Scarlet Witch magic.
Yeah.
Like Wiccan witchcraft stuff.
Take your chaos and put it into your hexes.
Yeah. And I thought there was this gem involved. Is that something significant, or was that just something that was in animation?
I think in like D&D, it's called a focus.
Okay.
Is the term for it, and it's like when you're doing magic, you use this thing to help channel it, and I think that was like that's what it was implied to be.
It was focused on enough that I started writing a note about it, and then it just didn't really add up to anything later.
Right.
But it was basically a training montage, but with magic.
Where it would have been appropriate to do, like you were saying, this, like music video 2.0.
Oh, I could see that. This next part is where I thought the music video was going to happen. We see Wanda's in the bathroom, and she does like when you're going to make a big change in a TV show or movie, cut your hair. I thought that first snip was going to be that guitar riff.
Right.
And then we're going to see her, I don't know, transform, but it's pretty short. She just basically cuts the two sides of her hair short, so it's like a pixie cut. And then Pietro walks in. He's like, hey, we need to talk. And Wanda's like, there's not really much to talk about. Our father put me into an institution. You didn't do shit about it. Which is a little harsh if they're both like little kids, because we saw the flashback. Pietro's very young too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're twins, aren't they?
They are twins.
I forgot about that. Yeah, so they're the same age.
Yeah, and he's like, I didn't want to leave. And then Pietro, being the dumbass that he is like, he was just concerned about doing what was best for you. And then you see the flashback of them like crying as kids, right, and her like being pulled in by the orderlies and shit.
And that flashback is where we have the reveal that was Magneto. Right. I was actually wondering what direction they're going to take with these, because in the MCU, we don't know who Pietro and Wanda's biological parents are, right? Because it's just their adoptive parents we see in WandaVision.
Right, the ones that they're in the apartments with. Yeah. Yeah,
but they make it clear this is a Magneto.
And then he does the whole like, oh, you just need to see it from his point of view. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, you're going to die.
Yeah, this is where you die.
This is where you have your multiverse of madness shredded moment, like you're fucking John Krasinski.
Wanda from the MCU arrives in Evolution with Sokovia and drops it on him. Not with Sokovia, with Ultron, and brings Ultron to him. Then Wanda yells at Pietro. She leaves the bathroom. She's like, I don't want to talk about this.
And she says, monsters don't get to have a point of view. Right. You're just like him, and you always were. And it's like, she literally just compared her brother to being a monster. There's no subtext to that.
And as she's walking out, Mystique is outside the bathroom. We just get Mystique is just always spying the right time, right place.
Yeah.
Both as Risty and Mystique.
Yep.
And she basically asks Pietro, she lets Wanda go, but she asks Pietro where his loyalty lies, because it's a reminder that he double-crossed her. That was the word I was looking for earlier, not double-agentedness. Double-crossed her with Magneto. And he was like, obviously, it's you, because he lost.
He's abandoned us twice.
Yeah.
She also says, because he's asking, like, are we ready to go up against Magneto yet? And she's like, yes, but we need a little bit of a test first.
And then back at the X-Mansion, Xavier tells the kids that Cerebro found Wanda. She's with the Brotherhood, and they're currently at the mall.
They're all chilling in the kitchen, too. I love that. I love the visual of that.
And I'm going to assume it was Kitty. One of the kids were like, maybe they just wanted to go shopping. And Xavier's like, the mall is clearly closed. You know this. And this was 2000s. So I guess it was probably like the end of the evening when all the kids are hanging out.
Let's assume 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, like 10-ish. Yeah. And I forget now, that's when malls used to close. I don't know how they close, what time they close in the rest of the country, but right now in LA, post-pandemic, Glendale Galleria closes like 8.
There was one mall I was trying to go to the other week to pick up something, and it literally had hours of closing at 7 p.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah, so the Galleria closes at 7 on Sundays.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah, anyway, so at that time, this had to have been, and I think Xavier actually said it's been closed for hours, specifically. So this is probably like midnight or later. I don't know,
11 o'clock.
Wild.
Yeah. The X-Men are like super cocky and confident about it too.
Yeah, I guess to Mystique's point, they haven't lost against them in a while. So or to the Brotherhood in a while. So they go. Xavier essentially sends the kids to the mall for whatever reason, because this should reek of a trap. But there they go. So they arrive.
Like
at
I said,
mall.
this Xavier sucks.
They arrive at the mall. Kitty phases in through the door to let the rest of the team in. Nightcrawler teleports in, and they all decide to split up. Kitty and Kurt initially are together, but they split up pretty quickly. I actually got confused there for a second, because Kitty runs into Lance, and then Kurt's suddenly not there, so they must have just like kind of parted ways.
I think it was like, we're going to split the party, and then we're going to split up further on the floors that our party's on kind of scenario. Like the whole, we could take out any of the Brotherhood individually. They're all really weak, so we can handle this.
And Kitty runs into Lance, which was probably by design. Lance is trying to warn her to leave because he's like, I don't want you to get hurt. She doesn't know what he's talking about. And
it was an interesting interaction. And the X-Men Evolution wiki said that their relationship is over, but still complicated at this point. I didn't see where they would have split up yet, because they seem to be cozy at the dance. So I don't know if the wiki was accurate on that one.
Yeah, or they were never like really together, but they were just toying with, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, he goes the whole like, you need to get out of here. I don't want you to get hurt. And before she can really dive into that loaded statement, you hear Spike yelling. I thought it was Spike who is like just off camera. You see he's actually in the electronics store, Jubilee's favorite place to go in the mall.
Oh, yeah. And he's fighting Blob. Then we start seeing like these sequences of paired off fights.
Yep, and Blob essentially gets stopped by Spike. You get Quicksilver and Kurt in a department store. And it proves that Quicksilver has no tactical knowledge of anything, because he thinks he could just wrap up Kurt in a bunch of clothes. And Kurt just teleports out and knocks him into a shoe-case and just finishes him off like completely punks him out, really.
Yeah, I have here, Pietro gets defeated by a hat.
Yeah.
We see Jean is in like the main hallway of the mall where the big fountain is. Remember when malls had fountains?
Yes, and this one wasn't just a fountain. This must have been like imported from the Rainforest Cafe, because it was a waterfall.
Yeah, and runs into Lance there. So I guess Lance has just like let Kitty be and tries to avalanche a bunch of rocks onto Jean. Scott zaps them away, but then this happens so fast, like rapid fire. Toad tongues Cyclops' visor, for lack of better words.
Which is perfect timing to have been a reference to the X-Men movie.
Oh, Okay.
Because that happens when they're at the train station scene, I believe, where he surprises Scott by pulling his visor off, and that makes him like shoot all over the place without control.
Interesting, yeah.
And we know that they've had communications with the Fox movie X-Men team because of stuff like the design of Mystique in the finale of last season. Jean and Lance basically have the Avalanche versus like telekinetic battle with the rocks and stuff like that, and Jean is able to overcome it. At that point, Scott is searching for his visor, and I don't know if you picked up on the animation error. He has his hand or his forearm covering his eyes, and the visor is still underneath his eye or underneath his arm covering his eyes as he's searching for the visor on the floor.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But then Rogue saves the day. She touches Toad to get his visor back, and
gets his athletic powers for a hot second when she jumps from the second floor of the mall to the ground without dying.
Yeah. And then Cyclops zaps Blob.
Yep.
And that's when Wanda arrives down the escalator. Very grand entrance.
Also, character design, I thought was interesting. She was wearing a necklace and 2 earrings that were ankhs, like the cross with the circle on top, which is usually Egyptian in nature. I thought it was an interesting character design choice.
And then she goes ham on them all. Essentially, every introduction of Wanda here is going ham on whatever location she's at the moment.
Yeah, she fucked up the psych place. She fucked up the Brotherhood house, and now she's fucking up the mall.
And that's when Cyclops starts shooting his optic blast, and Jean's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I don't know. I can't close my eyes." And then everybody just starts going haywire. Basically, she's just controlling them, which I did not see coming. I know she can change reality, but she's just like backfiring all these powers on everybody. Like,
yeah, stuff is like being reversed and thrown back, and just
like spikes get sent back to him.
Yep.
Kitty gets stuck mid-face through the floor, which has to be a nightmare.
Like, that should kill her,
right?
The spike thing, and this is where, remember in the past we've talked about it. I'm 200% convinced it is absolutely standards and practices, because they go into this fight and he goes into extreme fight mode, and he literally has on elbow pads and a helmet just for this portion of the fight.
I didn't think about that. It's so funny.
No.
You gotta be safe. You're fighting
because he didn't have any of that shit on when he was fighting Blob in the other thing 30 seconds ago.
So funny.
Has to be standards and practices.
And then the Nightcrawler comes in and rescues Kitty. It looks like he intends to teleport them just a few feet away outside, and he's like, I don't know how I ended up out here.
Yep, he has no control over it. And then my next note is fuck this mall, because at that point they are just like, everything is falling apart around them, and that's when they have to retreat, and Scott doesn't want to.
Yeah, Jean's like, we have to go. We're not winning today.
No, this is a tactical retreat. We need to get out of here.
Yeah, and so they're leaving literally a pile of rubble behind. There's no roof left or anything.
Yeah, and that's where we get Toad being the one to call out Wanda as the big gun, as the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, and I think, which is interesting, because they don't give any context to why they called her that. If you want to nitpick, maybe in that training montage with Agatha, it was revealed some context there or whatever.
Right.
But I love how, I think it was Toad that said, oh yeah, we beat him. It's like, she beat him.
Yeah.
All of you technically lost your individual fights.
Yeah. And then Quicksilver is like the last one to interact with Wanda, and is like, great that you're so in control. If only our father had known. And she's like, not ours, yours. And I love the family dynamic of them not being on the same page together.
And then outside, Xavier's there. I guess he's been there since the start.
He had to drive him there.
Right. Yeah, drop the kids off at the mall.
Yeah.
And he's like, one of the lessons you have to learn is how to take an L, basically.
Yeah.
I guess that was today's lesson.
And he also is, I also didn't train you properly for somebody of her level, too.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, especially because he was clearly aware of her, because he was going to Weekly or whatever.
He just watched her murder a bunch of orderlies.
Right. So he's watching them walk off into the distance. I guess they walked there together.
Yeah, they all Incredible Hulked out there. They were just like the sad, we all blew up. And then he's basically like, yeah, it's like a lesson in character. Shut the fuck up, Charles. Like, why didn't you help?
Yeah. Yeah, you could like mind wiped all these guys. But I think, if I'm remembering right, if it wasn't the first, it was one of the rare occasions where there was the clearest non-victory, clearest loss for these guys with no happy ending.
None whatsoever. It was L's all around for their team.
Like, nothing was gained. Maybe a lesson, like Charles said, but other than that, like, building several facilities were blown up and damaged. All the X-Men lost
to one person.
Yeah, to a single new character too.
Yeah,
and arguably none of them actually learned anything new, like tactically or anything.
Yeah,
like Avengers: Infinity War, where at the time it was like, wow, this is new because it's a superhero movie where they lose.
It kind of felt like a Spider-Man story in that way.
Oh, yeah.
Because Peter doesn't always get the happy ending, and this was very much not a happy ending.
That was that episode that did not feature a music video.
It did not. It should. So the only other note is just the roles of Pietro and Wanda compared to their comic counterparts are sort of reversed. In the comics, early on, even to modern day, Pietro has always had the more adversarial relationship with Magneto, and Wanda was usually the one who was a little more forgiving of him and trying to like play peacemaker between the two. But that was the only other real note that we didn't cover during the episode.
Cool. Any other thoughts or anything?
I'm excited for the next 2 episodes because they are a 2-part season finale. And from what has been unfortunately slightly spoiled for me, it feels very big. And I'm excited for that. It also has the top rating little tag next to the episodes on IMDb. These may be like people's top 3 episodes for the series popping in for our next week. So that's something great to look forward to.
Very cool. Yeah, we're essentially halfway through the series, which is wild to think about.
We are just at the halfway mark because I want to say it's 52 episodes or 54 episodes. So we're either this week or next week is the halfway mark for us. Yeah.
This episode, I pretty much said everything I wanted to say. In the overall conversation about Wanda, my only kind of thing I'm wondering is, back when we had Stephen Gordon on here, he had alluded to
the MCU side had been inspired by his team.
Yeah, about something they did with Wanda in Evolution. And so I'm wondering if that has happened in this episode, or if we're going to see something with Wanda later that is more direct, because I didn't see anything outright, but at the same time, I don't have a long history of knowing these characters in the comic books and stuff.
Without having seen where the rest of the season goes, the look of Wanda of like in the jacket and the black outfit and stuff like that, basically all the stuff that was without the headdress is very much Steven's style, whereas previously she was always like the pink tights and essentially the WandaVision Halloween episode look.
Yeah.
That's really what Wanda was in the comics.
Okay.
Even past this point. She only even started doing like more subdued looks after House of M, which was 5 years real time after this episode, or 4 years real time after this episode came out.
Very cool. So I guess we're probably going to see a lot more of her because she didn't actually do anything of consequence in this. They just literally, when Mystique said they were running a test.
I don't know. I feel like she fucked up the X-Men pretty bad. I would give her credit for that being of consequence.
She messed them up and stuff, but like the story, like she didn't attack the UN or anything. I'm assuming we're going to see her again in more like global context. But interesting episode. Did not expect to see Scarlet Witch pop up. Thanks for joining us.
I still feel bad for all the New Mutants who are still like Berserker still has not said more than 3 words the entire series.
That voice actor is like, where's my check? Thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them into the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on the podcast app you're choosing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, and CastBox. Time to go to bed.
Yeah.